People often have questions about how to do self-rescues in skin-on-frame kayaks. And in a lot of ways, it's not that much different than what we've been doing for years. Back in the sea kayaks of the 1980s and even the early 1990s, there wasn't bulkheads. And so people paddled with large float bags. And then if you went in the water, you would set up some type of outrigger system, climb back in the boat, and then use a pump to pump the rest of the water out. That's an effective rescue, although it is a lot more time consuming and a little bit more challenging than rescuing a boat in the same manner with a modern bulkheaded kayak. And so what I want to show you today is a system that you can use only with the skin-on-frame kayak because it is so light. And this is a clever little rescue that you can use with an unloaded boat to get all of the water out of it really quickly. Now, normally I would be doing, if I were out paddling, I would have large float bags, but just for purpose of our demonstration today, the boat is completely empty because I want you to be able to see how easy it is to get the water out if you're using this technique. Now, to do this, you need two things. You need a boat that doesn't have a lot of stuff in it. You need to make sure that you've got a PFD on, and preferably a dry suit that has a lot of flotation. So, first thing we're going to do is submerge the boat here. I'm going to get the boat completely full of water. It takes a little while. In a real rescue scenario, your boat would never be filling up with water like this because usually it would either be upright or upside down. So this is kind of a worst case scenario. Okay, so now we've got the boat completely flooded. I'm going to stow my paddle. Generally in a sea kayak rescue in a real circumstance, most people that rescue themselves, I find, lose their kayak or their paddle. If you're going to lose one of those two things, don't let go of your kayak, because ideally you will have a spare paddle on deck and the wind can take a kayak away from you like that. So keep your hands on the kayak at all times. Okay, so now that I've got this fully flooded boat, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the buoyancy of my PFD and keeping the boat balanced end to end to pour all of the water out of the cockpit. Now, the first time you try this, it's going to be laughable. You're just going to go right underwater, the boat's going to tip one way or another. But if you practice this rescue, and practice is key to any kind of effective rescue, you should be able to do it pretty quickly. So, put the boat on its side. Find the balance point, push yourself down into the water, and let all of the water flood out of the kayak. If you notice it's coming up too much on one end, push it down. Okay, that was about 95% of the water out of the kayak in about 7.5 seconds. So getting back in the boat, what you can do is set up an outrigger underneath these depth straps with a paddle float. I'm not a huge fan of this because generally when I see people crawling back into their boats with paddle float outriggers, they tend to tip over as soon as they get up top. I like to come over the back deck just using the stability of the Greenland paddle itself. So I'm using the Greenland paddle as an outrigger here, and I'm holding the boat and the paddle. As long as this paddle is 4 inches underwater, it makes it a very stable platform. So I just climb onto the back deck and I walk my way up the boat, always looking at the paddle and keeping the paddle underwater. And once I get to here, I can just drop my butt in the boat, switch the paddle to the back deck so I'm stable, slide my feet in. If you were doing this with a small cockpit at that point, you'd have to sit up on the back deck like this and then slide your feet in. And then I can take the paddle put it under the deck ridge like that, and then that makes it stable for me to be able to put on my spray skirt. If there's any water left, you can reach down with your pump and get out any water. But as you can see, that rescue was pretty effective because there's not even enough water in the boat for me to suck it out with a pump. I'll put on my spray skirt. And now I'm ready to paddle. Now, we just did that in calm conditions, but surprisingly I found that this is an effective rescue even in rough water. But the key to this rescue and the key to every sea kayak rescue is really practicing. If you go out and do something a couple times in flat water, don't expect it to work for you when you're out on a tour in a fully loaded boat in rough water. As always, judgment is by far the bigger part of safety.